Guys, I recently released a video talking about how I was going to triple down on Alibaba, and I got some interesting comments which I do want to respond to in this video. But first, as you guys smash that like button, I'm going to run the intro. What's up, guys? And let's get to these comments because some of them are very funny. So the first comment that I want to mention is Chili21 wrote that it's cheap for a reason. What he's talking about is Alibaba stock, because the Chinese government will take over it and then void all the shares as invalid, meaning your shares now mean nothing, or it can close down Baba's business whenever it wants to. So two things. One, would the Chinese government that wants its companies to list internationally start screwing over international investors? That doesn't make sense to me. Two, why would the Chinese government want to kill one of their own companies? If you believe in these two risks, I have a bridge to sell you. The next comment is from Freddie Whitman. He says, nice video. China is far too enmeshed in the capitalist world for its largest companies to fail. He's going to continue to load up until the share price finally takes off. Now, the only thing that I would say there is, of course, they're not going to try and let their companies fail. It makes no sense. Why would they blow up their own economy? But the other thing is, if you're going to load up on the shares, the same thing I'll recommend, like I always recommend, is make sure that you're focusing on diversification. And so that's just a risk mitigation strategy in general. I never want to see anybody who watches these videos to be overly exposed to just one name, no matter what that name is. Now, the next comment is from Anson. He says, time to lose money for the poster, aka me. With little knowledge of Chinese politics, you need to be taught a lesson by the CCP. Chinese in China, as opposed to Chinese anywhere else, aren't going to eat, sleep, and go to the grocery store like 2019 because they are in lockdown. So effectively what he's saying is, in one of my videos, I said that I'm a bull on Alibaba so long as people in China continue to eat, sleep, and go to the grocery store. What he's saying is that the whole country is in lockdown, and he accused me for not understanding the political landscape. Talk to anybody who actually lives in China, read a newspaper, and you'll see that the whole country is not in lockdown. This whole time, only pieces of the country have ever been in lockdown at any one given point, and people in those lockdown regions have still been able to go to the grocery store. Also, if there is lockdown and you can't leave your home, who do you think benefits? It's the online providers. And so none of this makes sense. Once again, I have a bridge to sell you. Now, the next comment comes from My First Million. Valuation clearly speaks for itself for Alibaba's shares. I'm also long on Alibaba. However, Chinese regulations is a huge negative factor for uncertainties, and that's what makes markets hate Alibaba the most. Also, there are more and more alternatives out there with very reasonable valuations. Now, the thing that I would say to this, and I actually responded to in the comment, and which was well received by the poster, is that, look, there's always risks to any security that you buy. With Chinese securities, there's specific risks that I've detailed on this channel, and the best way to sort of mitigate those risks is diversify. And like I always say on this channel, make sure that you diversify your portfolio because you never know what shoe is going to drop. Note, guys, that a couple of years ago, we did not think that COVID policies will remain this long in China, and they have, and they've really weighed on the share price. And so there's always a risk that you're not considering with your most foolproof opportunity that could come up and rear its ugly head. And so you guys always got to focus on diversification. Even if this overall strategy is to diversify over time as you just started investing, that also makes sense. The next comment is from Thomas. He says, careful with this one. Baba is a risky play. You've never discussed the fact that Westerners can't actually own any true legal Alibaba stock. They own ADRs, and so it's a real non-zero risk that the ADRs aren't worth anything at all because the CCP could start enforcing existing laws that already say ADRs are illegal. It is very difficult to properly value a company that you don't actually have any legal ownership interest in. Good luck. I'm really glad that Thomas is wishing us all good luck. Now, here's the thing. They have a gentleman's agreement with the investors internationally. Do you think that the Chinese government will shoot themselves in the foot by making it so that they can't raise money overseas? doesn't make sense at all, especially if they want to overtake the US in terms of being the largest GDP in the world. And so they got to work with international investors, and that's exactly what they're going to do. From the way that you worded this comment, you actually believe that there's more than just a greater than 0% risk. You believe that there's a very real risk, at least that's how I'm inferring your comment, that potentially could happen where they just start screwing over international investors. And so if you do believe that, once again, I have a bridge to sell you. Now, the next comment is probably the worst comment that I got on this channel, and I have no response to it. So here is that comment. Spider Cat responded by saying, meow. And so the only thing that I can recommend to address that comment is by everybody watching this video right now, go into comments and drop a meow in that comment to ward off that evil spider cat. Now notice Wall Street actually has an 83% premium to the current share price. They got a price target of almost $150 per share. So Wall Street largely agrees with me that the company is grossly undervalued. Now, the other thing is I went into the Seeking Alpha platform, which I have a subscription for, and noticed that 11 out of the 14 authors that have covered Alibaba in the last 30 days have a buy or a strong buy on the name. But I wanted to look into why there's 3 authors that have a hold on the name. Like, what is it that they're seeing that the rest of us aren't? And so I went into sort of their articles to see that. The first article went on to say that they don't want to own the stock because the delisting risk still persists for Alibaba and other such impacted names. Now, I have mentioned on this channel many times that the delisting risk doesn't actually exist. I would say I've gone so far as to debunk it. And so this is not a risk that I'm worried about. The next author goes on and says, I still have a hold rating for Alibaba. A ratings upgrade is only warranted if China indicates that it will change its current COVID-19 strategy. Now, here's the problem with this, that if you wait for them to officially change their COVID-19 strategy, you're going to be left in the dust because the stock is going to surge, and so you're going to miss it all. And what that reminds me is a quote made by Warren Buffett maybe 10 or so years ago. And this is the quote: if you wait for the robins, spring will be over. Look, none of us really know when the COVID-19 official strategy will be lifted, and so lockdowns will no longer happen, but we know that it will eventually happen. And so I'm comfortable with owning Alibaba, especially at the valuation that it's currently trading at. Now, the third Seeking Alpha person who has a hold rating on the stock is more of like a technical analysis based guy, so I really don't care for that. But where exactly does my valuation sit? Well, you can see that I'm valuing the company at approximately $250 per share, and the current share price is only $80 per share. So the share price as a percentage of its intrinsic value is sitting at 33%. So there's a lot of upside here with this name. And what I do gotta mention, guys, is that if you want access to that model and all the other models that the Patreons had access to, you can get access to that at the lower tier of the Patreons. And of course, guys, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you missed that video where I described my triple down strategy on Alibaba, you can get to that video right here.